am Kellya Moreau, 32, head chef and owner of La Lumière, one of Paris's most prestigious culinary destinations. Yet tonight, as I pushed open the heavy glass doors of my restaurant, I was neither chef nor owner. I was simply Kellya, the failure in the eyes of the Moreau family, an elite lineage from Lyon where reputation and status are everything. They had no idea that La Lumière bore my name, my sweat, my passion. And I chose to keep it that way, a silent experiment, to see how they would treat me when they believed I was still struggling with my supposedly pointless pursuit. The city lights outside shimmered against the glass, mirroring the tension in my chest. Here I commanded respect, yet I carried their judgment like a shadow, testing whether their regard for me was genuine or merely a reflection of my family's standing. Tonight I would find out. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. My journey, from ridiculed dream to radiant light. I grew up in an ancient mansion in Lyon where my parents, Genevieve and Etienne Moreau, ran the prestigious wine exporting company Moreau & Fils. My mother, a renowned sociologist, never tired of boasting about my older sister, Vivienne, 35, an international lawyer, and my younger brother, Dorian, 28, a rising finance specialist in Frankfurt. And me? I was the black sheep, the one who dared to love cooking, an obsession my father dismissed as servant work. Yet, from the earliest memories of my childhood, the kitchen was where I found joy and solace. Grandma Anna, our Italian housekeeper, quickly recognized the spark in me. She taught me to knead dough with precision, season dishes with intuition, and taste flavors not only with my tongue but with my soul. In those moments, the kitchen became my sanctuary, my stage, the place where I could breathe freely while the rigid expectations of my family pressed on me from every corner of our mansion. By 16, I had begun to orchestrate secret dinner parties for friends whenever my parents were away. Each gathering was an experiment, a performance. I would line the long oak table with candles, arrange flowers meticulously, and present dishes I had created from scratch. Each reaction from my friends, every smile or nod of approval, fueled the fire inside me. It was intoxicating, a whisper of what could be if only I dared to step fully into this world. Everything changed one rainy afternoon when I stumbled upon an old letter in the family archives. It was from my grandmother, a woman whose legacy had been buried under layers of Moreau pride and ambition. She had once been a masterful chef, renowned among Parisian circles, until she was forced to abandon her passion because her family deemed it shameful for a Moreau woman to labor over stoves and pots. The words of that letter ignited something in me, a blaze of defiance and determination. I would honor her dreams and, in doing so, claim my own. But the path was not easy. When I announced my intentions to enroll in a culinary school rather than join the family business, the reaction was swift and brutal. My parents cut all financial support, their faces a mixture of disappointment and contempt. My sister Vivienne, with a smirk that could freeze fire, asked, "So you're planning to be a chef slave for life?" That day, carrying only a small suitcase and the scant savings I had managed to scrape together, I left Lyon. I carried not just my own dreams but the unfulfilled aspirations of my grandmother, tucked carefully in my heart. Paris was a crucible. I moved into a cramped apartment in the 13th arrondissement, its peeling walls and tiny kitchen a far cry from the grandeur of Lyon. Days stretched endlessly, mornings as a prep cook in a small bistro, afternoons and evenings in a bustling central restaurant, weekends at a bakery where the scent of freshly baked bread kept my hope alive. Exhaustion was my constant companion, but so was the thrill of creation. Mistakes were inevitable. I remember the night I ruined the main course at a large dinner event, the flames of the oven mocking my efforts. I feared the pink slip, the end of my fledgling reputation. Yet in that disaster I found opportunity. I salvaged what I could, reimagined the dish, and presented a new creation. The reaction was electric. The guests were enchanted, their delight affirming that failure was merely a detour toward discovery. It was Chef Marcel Beaumont, a legendary 3-Michelin-starred master, who noticed me that night. He saw potential in the audacity of my choices, the fire behind my hands. Under his mentorship, I became his sous chef within 18 months, mastering not only technique but the philosophy of food, the way every ingredient could tell a story, the way a dish could capture emotion and memory. 3 years ago, at a high-profile culinary event, François Leclerc, an astute investor with a taste for brilliance, sampled one of my creations. The flavors, the precision, the heart in every bite persuaded him to back my vision. La Lumière was born, a restaurant that bore every ounce of my ambition, from the curated menu and ambient lighting to the design of every chair and table. Within 6 months, it became the most coveted reservation in Paris, lauded by Vogue Culinaire for its innovation and elegance. I gradually bought out all other investors, becoming the sole owner. Yet, amidst this triumph, I kept the truth from my family. They had no inkling that the black sheep they dismissed was the force behind one of Paris's most celebrated culinary establishments. I wanted them to encounter the real me, not the facade of success. I wanted to observe whether their regard would extend beyond the trappings of wealth and status, to see if they could recognize the value of passion, of perseverance, of creating light where none was expected. Every day, as I walked through La Lumière's doors, I felt a duality within me. Outside, I was a master of flavors, orchestrating symphonies of taste that delighted the most discerning palates. Inside, I carried the shadows of rejection and ridicule, a quiet reminder of what I had endured. The journey from that mansion in Lyon to the heart of Paris had been steep and unforgiving, but each step had been worth it. Every burnt dish, every exhausting shift, every skeptical glance from a mentor had been a thread in the tapestry of who I had become. Now, standing amidst the soft glow of La Lumière chandeliers, the polished tables reflecting flickering candlelight, I could feel the weight of my journey. I had transformed ridicule into respect, skepticism into admiration, and the disapproval of my family into the quiet satisfaction of personal triumph. Paris had not just tested me, it had forged me. It had allowed me to carve out a space where my grandmother's dreams and my own could coexist, where my passion was no longer a liability but a beacon. I am Kellya Moreau, chef, entrepreneur, dreamer. But more than that, I am a testament to the power of pursuing one's calling, even when the world, even family, doubts you. My path has been lined with hardship, laughter, tears, and triumph, yet through it all, I have discovered a truth that cannot be taken away. That passion, when nurtured with persistence, can illuminate even the darkest corners of expectation and fear. La Lumière is more than a restaurant. It is a monument to resilience, a place where dreams are honored, and where the flicker of a single spark can grow into a brilliant, unyielding light. The fateful dinner. Tonight, my family had chosen La Lumière to celebrate Vivienne's engagement to Olivier Dubois, a self-important venture capital director from London. They had no idea this was my restaurant. Perhaps Clara, Dorian's wife, had picked it solely for its reputation. I decided to attend, not to flaunt, but to confront my past, to see the faces that once dismissed me now sitting in my world, unknowingly under my roof. I wore a simple black Chloe dress, understated yet elegant, and draped around my neck the pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother. I knew my family would interpret my appearance as an attempt to mask poverty, a futile cover for inadequacy. But inside, I felt the thrill of anticipation more than fear. As I pushed open the glass doors, the familiar aroma of saffron, reduced wines, and fresh herbs enveloped me. Tonight, though, those scents quickened my heartbeat, tugging at memories of long nights spent perfecting sauces and roasting meats, the kitchen always alive with my whispered ambitions. Adrien, the veteran maitre d', recognized me immediately. He offered no greeting, only a subtle shake of his head at my signal. He understood, my secret was safe with him. My family had already taken their seats at the central table, positioned beneath a crystal chandelier that threw delicate light over the polished oak. Mother, draped in Chanel, scanned a wine list with the meticulous eye of a connoisseur. Father, with his usual stern expression, meticulously examined the vintages, as if the wine alone could validate the evening. Vivienne appeared luminous in Gucci, her posture as composed as any courtroom witness. Olivier flaunted his Patek Philippe, glancing at it with a pride that demanded admiration. Dorian and Clara looked as if they had stepped straight out of a high-powered conference, their expressions carefully neutral, yet betraying a subtle curiosity at my arrival. Their greeting was awkward, measured. Mother's eyes swept over me, a quick evaluation from head to toe, her judgment unspoken yet tangible. "Kellya, finally you've come," she said, her tone laden with critique rather than warmth. Vivienne did not rise. She offered her cheek for a perfunctory kiss. Olivier gripped my hand too firmly, reciting his resume as if I needed proof. Princeton undergrad, Wharton MBA, recently promoted at Goldman Sachs. I smiled faintly, accustomed to their displays of status, the endless recitation of accomplishments as if they alone conferred worth. Dinner began as I had anticipated. They ordered the most expensive bottle on the list, a Chateau Margaux priced at €1,200, a choice that, to my palate, clashed horribly with the main course. I suggested an alternative, a wine that would complement the flavors, but father waved me off dismissively. "I know my wine, Kellya," he said with finality. Criticism came fast and unrelenting. Vivienne pushed away the amuse-bouche, a compressed cube of watermelon paired with fermented black garlic, calling it rustic and unrefined. When the main course, inspired by my grandmother's recipes, was served, Vivienne refused to taste it. "This looks like leftovers from a market stall," she sneered. Her words pierced like a knife, but I remained composed, clinging to my wine glass as if it were a lifeline. Olivier and Vivienne continued their interrogation with relentless precision. "How can you afford to dine here? Are you in debt? Do you have someone supporting you?" they asked, voices sharp with disbelief. Mother suggested ever so subtly that I consider finding a wealthy husband to stabilize my life, while Dorian tried to mediate, his expression tinged with pity despite his best efforts. I felt as though I were transported back to those childhood dinners in Lyon, when my opinions were dismissed, my presence undervalued. The difference now was stark. I was no longer that timid, uncertain girl. I had built La Lumière from the ground up, transformed it into a world of my own making, a kingdom of flavors, light, and intention. I let them continue, observing every flicker of expression, every micro-reaction. Their condescension was expected. Their inability to see beyond lineage and wealth was painfully predictable. Yet their ignorance of the truth only heightened the quiet power I felt. This was my moment, not for retaliation, but for recognition, even if they could not grant it willingly. Adrian moved through the room with seamless precision, attending to their every need while subtly watching me. Every dish, every pour, every flicker of candlelight had been curated by my hand. They were dining not just in any restaurant, but in my creation, yet oblivious to the fact that they were under the care of the very girl they had once scorned. The table, the ambience, the staff, all elements of my vision executed flawlessly, all silently announced my mastery. Vivienne, still unyielding, dissected every bite with the precision of a critic, each comment a tiny dagger. Olivier's pride demanded he match her contempt, and together they formed a duet of derision that once would have reduced me to tears. But now I responded only with measured grace, a faint smile and polite acknowledgement, letting my silence speak louder than any words could. Father, absorbed in the wine, offered the occasional nod of approval to Olivier, as if to legitimize his son-in-law's judgment over mine. Mother's gaze, sharp and analytical, attempted to measure me once again, weighing my poise, my attire, my composure. She could see wealth, but she could not see the empire I had quietly built beyond her understanding. Each course arrived, each plate a testament to my skill, and with each presentation I felt the tension build. This dinner, intended as a celebration of Vivienne and Olivier's union, had become a subtle battlefield. Every dish challenged their preconceptions. The amuse-bouche, a play of textures and unexpected flavors, forced them to confront unfamiliarity. The main course, honoring my grandmother's legacy, carried the essence of heritage and rebellion, the defiance of a woman denied her own destiny. As dessert approached, a delicate soufflé infused with elderflower and paired with a compote of seasonal berries, I noticed the first cracks in their composure. Vivienne's lips pressed into a thin line as she reluctantly tasted the dish, her eyes widening imperceptibly. Olivier, forced to acknowledge her reaction, allowed a flicker of admiration to surface. Mother's assessment remained guarded, but her gaze lingered on me longer than before, as though tasting not just the dessert but the hidden narrative woven into it. I realized in that quiet, suspended moment that the evening was no longer just a test for them, it was a revelation for me. I had transformed the fear and ridicule of my youth into confidence and mastery. Every glance, every word of derision, had been absorbed and transmuted into the energy that sustained La Lumière. The girl who once hid behind walls of doubt now stood openly in her own brilliance, and the family who once dismissed her had no idea of the power seated among them. The night ended not with applause, but with subtle acknowledgement. Vivienne, still resistant, left her chair with a slight nod. Olivier's handshake, though still firm, carried a trace of respect that had been absent before. Dorian's expression softened. His sympathy mingled with genuine astonishment, though he dared not voice it aloud. The mother, ever calculating, said nothing, yet the weight of her scrutiny lingered, a silent concession to the undeniable reality before her. As I escorted them to the exit, guiding them past the kitchen where my staff worked with quiet precision, I felt an unexpected warmth. This dinner, fraught with tension and judgment, had become a turning point. I had faced the echoes of my past, the scorn of my family, and emerged not wounded but illuminated. La Lumière was not merely a restaurant, it was my declaration, a living testament to resilience, passion, and the quiet triumph of a dream long denied. That night, as the doors closed behind my family, I stood in the center of La Lumière, the soft glow of chandeliers reflecting in the polished floors, the aroma of herbs and saffron filling the air. I allowed myself a deep, unguarded breath. The world outside could continue to measure worth in titles, wealth, and appearances. Within these walls, however, I had rewritten the rules. I was Kellya Moreau, chef, creator, and sovereign of my own destiny. And finally, for the first time, the past, with all its pain and judgment, felt powerless against the light I had built. Turning point. The climax of the evening arrived when the bill was brought to the table. Olivier, confident and slightly smug, reached for his wallet, prepared to assert the usual power of wealth and status. His expression, however, shifted as his eyes fell on the total, 4,500 euros. Confident smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty that betrayed his composure. "Is there a problem?" my father asked, voice smooth but laced with curiosity. Vivienne, never one to hold back, seized the moment like a hawk circling prey. "Kellya," she said, her tone dripping with suspicion, "be honest. How could you possibly pay for your share? Or are you pretending, trying to save face?" I opened my mouth, ready to respond, when a commanding voice rang out from the next table. It was Madame Claire Dupont, the renowned food critic whose name alone could make or break a restaurant in Paris. She rose gracefully, her presence demanding attention. "I want to thank Chef Kellya Moreau for the most exquisite meal I have ever experienced." Her words hung in the air like a declaration, charged with authority. Instantly, applause erupted throughout the restaurant, a spontaneous acknowledgement from the staff, the patrons, and the ambience itself. My family froze, their faces a mixture of shock, disbelief, and confusion. Adrien, ever composed and respectful, stepped forward. A knowing smile tugged at the corners of his lips as he addressed my father. "No charge on the bill, sir," he said smoothly. "All meals tonight have been complimentary, under the policy of Chef Moreau, the owner of this establishment." Then, with a slight bow, he added, "Chef Kellya has also generously sponsored a scholarship fund for aspiring young chefs from disadvantaged backgrounds, an initiative of remarkable vision." My mother's hand instinctively touched the pearl necklace that had belonged to her own mother, her eyes flicking between the chain and my composed face. My father stiffened, the rigid lines of his jaw betraying the shock he could not voice. Vivienne's eyes widened, disbelief and indignation wrestling for dominance. "La Lumière is yours?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," I replied, calm and measured, each word deliberate. "I am the head chef and the owner. Every dish you enjoyed tonight was created by me." I let a brief pause linger before recounting the path that had led me here, not to boast, but to reveal the depth of effort, sacrifice, and passion behind what they had thought was a mere dining experience. I spoke of long days stretching into nights, 18-hour shifts where the fire of the kitchen seared my hands, where sleep was limited to snatches of 4 hours at a time. I spoke of the countless failures that had transformed into opportunities for creativity, the sleepless nights spent perfecting recipes, the relentless pursuit of a dream that had once seemed frivolous in their eyes. I recounted the early days in Paris, when I juggled 3 jobs just to keep afloat, mornings in a bistro, evenings in a central restaurant, weekends at a bakery, and how each day built me into the chef and entrepreneur I had become. I told them about Chef Marcel Beaumont, whose mentorship had shaped my technique and philosophy, and about François Leclerc, the investor who had believed in my vision when no one else would. I detailed how La Lumière had evolved from a fledgling concept into a sanctuary of culinary excellence, a place where every element, the menu, the lighting, the staff, even the placement of each chair, was a reflection of my vision, my labor, and my heart. "I never sought your approval," I said firmly, looking at each of them in turn. "I came tonight to see how you would treat me when you thought I had failed. And I have seen your answer clearly." The silence that followed was thick, charged with emotions unspoken. Mother attempted to offer an explanation, a feeble effort to justify the dismissive and belittling attitude she had once shown. Vivienne, for the first time that evening, said nothing, her usual torrent of words trapped by the realization of her sister's triumph. My father's face softened, the lines of judgment easing into something resembling acknowledgement. He nodded slowly, as if conceding that he had been wrong to underestimate me, to dismiss the dreams that had once seemed so distant and impractical. It was not just a victory of recognition, it was the reclamation of dignity, the public acknowledgement that the girl they had mocked, the failure they had dismissed, had quietly become a force of excellence in a world they valued more than they valued her. The table that had been intended to showcase Olivier and Vivienne's union now bore witness to the quiet, undeniable reality of my achievement. Adrian moved through the room, ensuring that every detail reflected the perfection I demanded. Patrons glanced toward our table, sensing the shift in energy, the subtle yet unmistakable tension of revelation. Each clink of silverware, each soft murmur of approval from neighboring diners, underscored the triumph I had orchestrated silently. The elegance of La Lumière, once a background to my own modest pride, had become the instrument of my vindication. I continued to speak, my voice steady, describing the philosophy behind my dishes, the story woven into every ingredient. How each flavor was selected not only for taste but for memory, for emotion. How the kitchen, once a place of refuge, had become my arena of expression, my stage, my battlefield where every success was hard-won. I spoke of my scholarship initiative, the commitment to nurture future chefs who might otherwise be overlooked, a living testament to the lessons I had learned and the values I wished to uphold. Vivienne, still struggling with the revelation, finally broke eye contact, her pride and indignation clashing violently with the undeniable reality before her. Olivier's usual self-assurance faltered, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement that this was no ordinary woman, no ordinary family dinner. My mother's eyes lingered on me, tracing the lines of my posture, the calm confidence in my gaze, the subtle authority in my manner. For the first time, I sensed a hesitation, a questioning of assumptions long held as truth. I concluded by reiterating what I had long understood. Success is not measured by wealth, status, or lineage alone. It is measured by persistence, by the courage to pursue one's passions despite ridicule, by the integrity to create, and by the strength to rise when the world assumes you cannot. "I did this," I said softly but firmly, "for me, and for the truth of who I am." The atmosphere at the table shifted subtly, imperceptibly to most, yet profoundly in its significance. My family, conditioned to measure value through external markers, was confronted with an internal triumph they could neither diminish nor ignore. Each acknowledgement, each pause was a silent testament to the journey I had endured, the trials I had overcome, and the light I had cultivated from the shadows of doubt and derision. Finally, my father spoke, his voice measured, reflective. "I was wrong," he admitted quietly. "I should have supported you. I see now the dedication, the talent, and the vision you carry." Mother offered a murmured concession, a softer, more tentative acknowledgement than I would have expected. Vivienne remained silent, the clash of pride and astonishment rendering her temporarily speechless. Olivier, though still reserved, extended a careful nod, a silent recognition that the evening had not gone as he had planned. In that moment, I understood the true power of the night. It was not about humiliation, revenge, or grand gestures. It was about revelation, the unveiling of truth, the recognition of hard-earned mastery, the undeniable assertion of identity and self-worth. La Lumière, my creation, my sanctuary, had become the conduit through which this truth was communicated. As the evening drew to a close, I allowed myself a brief, private smile. The air was charged with the remnants of astonishment and respect, the subtle acknowledgement of achievement that required no embellishment, no exaggeration. I had faced the skepticism, the condescension, and the scorn of my family, and emerged not diminished, but fully illuminated by the work of my own hands, the fire of my own ambition, and the unwavering commitment to the path I had chosen. That night, as my family departed, still processing the revelation, I felt the profound satisfaction of reclamation. I had transformed ridicule into recognition, doubt into admiration, and in doing so, had asserted not just ownership of a restaurant, but ownership of my life, my dreams, and my voice. I was Kellya Moreau, chef, entrepreneur, and witness to my own triumph. And for the first time, I could step into the future unburdened by their expectations, fully aware that my light, once hidden, now shone unassailable. Conclusion, reconciliation, and freedom. I agreed to host Vivienne's wedding at La Lumière, not to curry favor, but because she is still my sister. The decision was deliberate, a gesture of acknowledgement without surrender. A week later, my father sent me a bottle of vintage wine, accompanied by a handwritten note admitting he had been wrong. I was moved, yet I chose to maintain my distance, protecting the independence I had fought so hard to secure. That Sunday, I took my family to a small eatery in Montmartre, a hidden gem where simple dishes carried a quiet elegance. The flavors surprised them, prompting genuine reactions that were untainted by the trappings of luxury or status. My father, usually so reserved, admitted with an almost sheepish smile, "I never imagined an egg could taste like this." For a fleeting moment, I glimpsed a different kind of connection, one that did not demand compromise but offered mutual appreciation and subtle understanding. Later, after the restaurant had closed and the last lights dimmed, I sat alone in the La Lumière kitchen, the quiet hum of the space surrounding me. I began drafting the introduction to my upcoming cookbook, letting my pen trace the path of my culinary journey. Food is my most honest language. When words fail, I speak through flavors. Choosing passion over expectation has led me to a feast richer than any recognition could provide. In that moment, clarity settled over me like a gentle light. The most precious thing was not the pride reflected in my family's eyes, nor the fleeting applause of strangers. It was the freedom to live authentically, to honor my dreams without apology, to transform doubt into art and resilience into taste. Life had taught me that validation is fleeting, but self-respect is enduring. I had faced judgment, rejection, and skepticism, yet I emerged whole, guided not by the desire to please, but by the courage to be true to myself. If you've ever faced the choice between someone else's expectations and the calling of your own heart, share your story. Celebrate the moments you chose authenticity over approval. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, courage, and triumph, because every journey toward freedom deserves to be shared.